Lindsay. What? Yeah.
Should I get one in the paper?
Did you get one? I have no idea. Were you here yesterday?
Yeah.
You did get one yesterday then.
I can't find it.
I'm sorry. You'll have to do your best. It's in Schoology. All right, so who's got an idea? Remember, this is our first day, but you already, I think, have an idea. What are you thinking about doing?
Cosine over sine.
So cotangent is cosine over sine. Perfect. These are all multiply, so I'm going to then put a times sign in there. This is sine over 1. There's not much you can do with a sine or a cosine, but everything else can be changed, right? What's secant? 1 over cosine. And what's tangent?
Sine over cosine.
Sine over cosine. Now, this is a straight multiplication problem. And you are allowed to cancel in a multiplication. There's no adds or subtracts in there, right? So we're allowed to just start canceling. So won't this cancel? And this cancel? Does anything else cancel? So what am I left with? Sine over cosine. And what is that? What is sine over cosine? Tangent. So the answer to the problem is tangent.
Why don't you do anything with the lines?
What's 1 divided by 1? Lindsay?
So on the sheet, it has cotangent. There's 2 for cotangent.
Uh-huh.
Which one do we?
Well, it depends on the problem. I would always, I prefer to change everything into sines and cosines. Those are like the building blocks of the whole system. But there will be problems where it will be maybe faster to use 1 over cotangent or something instead. It's never a matter of what's the right one. It's the one that seems appropriate in that problem. I like to just change into sines and cosines all the time.
Okay.
All right, so now I need the, could you try the second problem? I'm gonna steal this for a minute because I gave mine away. 1 minus cosine squared over sine. Now remember, you are allowed to change those thetas into x's if the thetas bother you. I don't want you to get hung up with the thetas. Okay? Now, look at your sheet. This one's a little harder. Look at your sheet. What do you... Does the top factor? Okay, now this is a great thought because it does. But here's the issue, Lindsay. If I factor it, which there will be problems when I definitely want to do that, but does that help me? The purpose of factoring is almost always so that you can cancel. And in this case, while I can, it doesn't really help me at all. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so take a look at your sheet. We haven't actually written this one, but we wrote one close to it. You know, because we've used it, we have an identity that says sine squared plus cosine squared is 1, right? Mm-hmm. And a little while ago, we subtracted sine squared, and so you had one written that was cosine squared equals 1 minus sine squared, right? But if I subtracted cosine instead, do you see how it would be sine squared equals 1 minus cosine squared?
No.
Okay, subtract sine squared from, or excuse me, subtract cosine squared from both sides. Go to this identity and do minus cosine squared. What does it say if you subtract cosine squared? Sine squared equals 1 minus cosine squared, right? So go ahead and write that one down next to it too. So Now you have the original, but you have these two both written there next to it. So 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared. So look at your problem. What do you think I might do?
Sine squared.
Change that into sine squared, because 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared. So sine squared, oops, I'll use the theta since that's what's on the paper, but you can use x's, it doesn't matter. Sine squared over sine. Can I cancel? Yeah, one of them. And what will that leave me with? Sine over 1, or just plain sine. Okay, so that one was a little bit trickier, but now that you have this stuff written on your paper, maybe it'll be a little easier next time. That one wasn't bad at all, right? So you're getting the hang of it even after one day. You're getting the hang of it. Let's go ahead and do, oh, I don't have that paper. Let's go ahead and do the next practice quiz. Okay, so let's see. Look at it. What do you think? Do you have a thought on the first one?
1 over cosine.
This is practice quiz number 2. This is the last thing we'll do today, all right? Let's see if we can get through these 2 problems. Do you have an idea?
1 plus 10
Oh, she says, ay, 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 it's right there on my sheet. 1 plus tangent squared is secant squared. Look at your paper. Doesn't it say 1 plus tangent squared equals secant squared? Well, what happens now? You have secant over secant squared. What's that? You can cancel out a secant, and you'll have 1 over secant. Be careful when you cancel. There's only 1 on the top, so that's going away, and 1 of these is going away. And what's the reciprocal of secant? What's 1 over secant?
We done, ladies?
Cosine. That's cosine. The reciprocal of the secant is the cosine. You know that. You're supposed to already know that. They're reciprocals. Secant and cosine are reciprocals. So that mess boiled down to just cosine. All right, take a second, see how far you can get with that second one. You did great on the first practice quiz with it. Let's see how you do with this. Take a second. So everybody should be writing this down, Antoine. You can write it on another piece of paper. There's the problem. You better care of yourself. I did handle it yesterday during the test. All right, who has a thought? I see a bunch of you busily writing. Nate just threw down his pencil like he's conquered it. So Nate, what did you do?
I only got the last. I didn't get the first 2. I only got the last 2.
Okay, so because the first 2 are already cosines and sines. So let's leave them alone. Let's just have cosine squared over 1 times sine over 1. All right, and then what did you do with this?
I made it 1 over cosine.
Okay,
And then sine over cosine.
perfect. And they're all multiplied together. So you're allowed to cancel, right? Anything you want. So notice, what do you have down here in the bottom? Cosine times cosine, right? that's gonna cancel with that? Now, do these two cancel? No, because they're both on the top. So what's the answer? I'm done canceling, so the answer is? Sine squared. Okay? So we're gonna have one more class of practice, and then we'll have a quiz, just like these two practice quizzes, and there's another practice quiz we'll do next time. 2 problems. But look how much, I know, but look how much you've learned already. Learned already. So much.
So you're gonna.